We go to the stripper store.
There's a stripper
There
store?
were stripper stores back then. I can't remember what it was. But
Strippers and that.
it was. So I actually wrote a book about this.
What's the book called?
It's called Stripped Down.
Oh.
And it's kind of about it's about some of these things that we're going to talk about.
If I walked into the room and I saw you, you're not your typical,
No.
right? I can say that without you getting
Yes,
pissed off.
100%. Do you want to see it?
Yeah.
Give me your hand so we can do this.
Oh my gosh. Should I be nervous?
Now look at that glass and say, that is an elephant.
Typically, at this point in the show, I would offer you a drink,
Okay.
but you don't drink.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because of emetophobia. My first instance as a stripper in a room is the funniest. This guy's got to be about 80, 85, right? His false teeth got dislodged and they fell out.
Welcome to Barbells and Bourbon Strengthened Stories. I am your big, bald, bearded, barbell lifting, bourbon drinking son of a bitch, Shaun. And joining me today is Teresa Blackburn.
Hello.
Welcome to our home, Teresa.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. We talked briefly the other day. I know almost nothing about you. I did ask you to give me some highlights about your life, and you kind of hesitated.
Yeah.
You ended up opening up about some stuff. And I've been thinking since we talked, our lives are like a book with multiple various chapters. And I think a lot of us, our chapters kind of like run together. There's like a smooth transition between them. I feel like your chapters are very well defined and have very distinct names. Some of the chapters could be called Stripper Life or Emotion Code.
Yeah.
Or Phobias or Mold Poisoning, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to get into all of those chapters. And I have a little birdie that told me some stuff about you. We have a mutual acquaintance, Aubrey.
Yep.
So she wasn't like dropping dirt, but she said that you met through Emotion Code. I don't even know what that is, but we're going to talk about that.
That sounds good.
With all of your life that you've been through to this point, is there anything that you've learned that you want the viewer to kind of get out of our conversation today?
Like an overall theme.
Sure.
I think the overall theme would be that what you think about the most and what you experience the most of, which would dictate how you think the most, is going to create how your life shows up.
Okay. So almost sowing the seed that you plant thought-wise.
Yeah. Yeah. Even, but also unconsciously too. So, your experience is shaping who you are and how that shows up. Even if you don't want it to be that way, it's going to show up that way. Yeah.
Did your childhood do a lot of shaping of who you are today?
Yeah. I mean, that is a big part of it. I think it's everybody's, part of their programming. Their base programming is their childhood and what happened to them, what they saw and what they also experienced is a big component in that. And mine definitely, as I traced it back, I really could see very clearly where it did that and in what areas of my life that it showed up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as it's happening as a child, you're not realizing at that time maybe that it could affect your future because our thoughts aren't really mature at that point. We're just doing the best we can to listen to our parents or get through school or whatever it may be. Then as you grow into adulthood, it's just like, oh my God, I had no idea that moment in time would affect my life as much as it has.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I like to do, and before we continue, like the video because it's free and I know you're going to like it. Please subscribe because that's free too. I want to step back into childhood. I want to get into a little bit more detail. It sounds like it had a huge impact on your life.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Steubenville, Ohio, which isn't far from Pittsburgh. It's a little small town. But 40 minutes away from the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about your life with your parents and all that good stuff.
Well, we lived in a small trailer when I was really small. And then we moved into a house when I was like maybe 5 or 6. But I had mom and dad, they were there. And then later on, like right around 10, I had mom, dad, and another guy. And so like as far as I could process from 0 to 10, I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't really understand it until I got older. But that was like a third party, as far as my parents' relationship goes. But before that, even I had a lot of health issues when I was young. As soon as I was born, I had all kinds of like ear infections. I always had some kind of illness, and then I had a bunch of hospitalizations and surgeries and medical conditions before I was 5. So that was like my bowels weren't developed fully. I was constantly going in and having like all these procedures done. I'm a little kid and everybody's poking and prodding in that area and like enemas and like all this. So, you don't think anything of it. You're like, oh, my kid has problems. I take him to the hospital, get this situated and fine. But it did affect me, for my whole life, like those very early childhood traumatic medical procedures. So that's a whole subject. But other than that, I grew up okay, with grandparents. I was an only child, only niece, only grandchild. So it was just me. Yeah. It was a lot of focus on just me. But yeah, my mom and dad like had some issues with, infidelity, back and forth. And then my mom ended up with this guy who was there in the house with my dad. And, that was strange, obviously, but like I thought it was normal. So I really didn't think much of it.
How did they introduce you to this guy? Who did they say he was?
Well, my mom worked at a donut shop and my dad was a beer truck driver. And he just kept coming into the donut shop because his daughter worked with my mom. And that was just a friend. It was my mom's friend.
Okay. That is now living with us.
Yeah. Like he was still married and he had left his wife temporarily to come and live with us. And, I'm doing homework with my dad while my mom's laying on the couch with the guy. So, yeah.
And this is normal to you because you didn't know any
I'm
other.
10. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When did you finally realize that wasn't so normal?
Good question. I mean, I would say, in my teen years when other people's families weren't doing that type of thing, friends, like through peers, like just noticing that they didn't have that at all.
Yeah. So did you have friends over to the house and you're introducing mom, dad, and donut
no,
boy?
No, not that I can remember because that was only from the time I was 10 to 15. So I was a kid. And so I had neighbor kids around and nobody ever, like I didn't have friends over that would have inquired about that dynamic. Yeah.
How long was he living with you guys?
I was probably 2 years, maybe 2 or 3 years between the time I was like 10 and 15. Yeah.
It's more than just a sleepover.
Yeah.
This is a long-term thing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
What was school like for you?
I went to a Catholic school. Grew up Catholic, small town, little Catholic school. School was fine. I had a lot of anxiety disorders though from like right around 10. I had so many issues with tonsil problems and I had my tonsils out. And so like all the antibiotics and all the rounds of strep throat gave me like an OCD disorder, which is now called PANDAS, but they didn't know what that was back then. So I would miss like 30 days of school a year. I was always like having panic attacks and anxiety attacks. I would be up all night, with nausea and like the OCD weirdness. So school was okay. I had good friends and I liked to play sports, but I would miss a lot because of anxiety.
Okay.
So, but school was okay. Yeah.
So you had a lot of medical problems as a kid.
Yes.
What did that do to you as an adult? Are you paranoid about things now? Like,
No, worse than that.
Okay.
As an adult, I realized that I had like leaky gut. I had a gut imbalance that started back then. And it created like a type of anxiety that I always lived with and thought was normal. But really it was constantly affecting me at some level. And then I had like nervous system reactions to any type of medical things that came my way. Like if I was going to go to get blood work, I would start shaking and sweating and feeling dizzy for like, however much time afterwards. same thing with like any dental procedure or anything medical would cause me this nervous system reaction, even though I knew in my mind, this is okay. This is safe. This is normal. It's just blood work. But I couldn't physically feel any different. So that was really, it really set the tone for like how my nervous system was going to behave. It override my logical mind completely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it controlled your life.
Yeah. Yep.
What other things were you afraid of besides like medical things?
I mean, basically it was that. I was like very anxious about health issues. Like I had a emetophobia, which is fear of throwing up. Like that was a really strong fear that would cause me panic attacks all the time. I was afraid of like being in small spaces or, being trapped because, when you're young, you got these medical professionals over top of you. I'm sure they had to hold me down at 3 and 4 at some point in 1980, Yeah. So it was like all these little phobias kind of like sprouted from that, that condition, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
So out of, middle school and elementary school, what high school did you go to? What was high school life like for you?
It was good. I was another Catholic school. I played a lot of sports. I was involved in softball, basketball, and I just went and got through school so I could play the sports.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I had friends. Yeah. It was
Now,
okay.
When you said you went to a Catholic school earlier, you kind of snickered.
Yeah. Because people
Why?
just say things. Oh, you're Catholic schoolgirl, Catholic schoolgirl turned bad, tattooed, became a stripper. It's like, go figure. So,
What? It didn't teach you much, did it?
right. I mean, I think it had a good foundation, which, I still practice. I practice things from that faith. However, I don't go to the church, because that's like an institutional thing. It's whatever. But yeah, it just is funny because like,
It is kind of ironic in
Yeah.
a way. Okay. Out of high school, did you extend your education at all?
Yeah, I got, I went to more Catholic schools. I got,
Didn't learn, did you?
no, I didn't. I got an undergrad in mental health at a very conservative Catholic school just because it was local. And then I got my master's in counseling at Carlo, which is in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Why did you keep going to Catholic schools? Was that your choice or your parents' choice? Or
No,
what?
nope. Just kind of showed up that way. I mean, in my town, there's a university there, and you got money off because you're local. It's financially more reasonable. So I went there, and then there were just programs in Pittsburgh. It's like look for masters in counseling program, and it was Carlo, it was Chatham, it was Catholic schools. So
Just the way it worked
yeah,
out.
it's just yeah,
Okay.
no particular reason.
Now, did you get a job out of college?
No. So yes and no.
Okay. In your majors that you were pursuing.
I did it first. Right when I finished my bachelor's, I went straight into be a case manager for like the most intense cases, basically going into people's homes, making sure they're okay. I only made, it was in 2003. I made $9.60 an hour with a bachelor's in 2003.
How discouraging was that?
Terribly. Yeah. So I was
All
like,
that money and all that time for
Yeah.
9 something an hour.
I was like, all right, cool. This is what we're going to do. And in 2003, that was probably like what, $14 an hour now, something like that.
Which you can make at McDonald's. Not to make you
Exactly.
feel any worse.
Right. It's true.
But yeah.
So I was doing that. And but I was like, it involved with someone who she had a pill problem. She like any drug problem. She just liked to do drugs. So I was in a relationship with her ish. She had another girlfriend that she had on the side. Or I was the side, let's put it that way. And how I got to be a side piece was started like when I was like 15, my first relationship with a woman. But it was in the midst of that, and I kept like leaving work to give her like, oh, I need a pill, or I need this, or I need that. So I'd get her what she wanted, and eventually I ended up getting fired. So I was 23 because I had like, it took me a while to get through my bachelor's, but I was 23 and I got fired, and I was like, what am I going to do? She was like, well, she goes, I'm going back to stripping. And I was like, okay. And she was like, you can come. And I'm like, I can't walk in heels. Like, I'm like a athlete lesbian. Like, what do you want me to do that? So I had done like side stage dancing at the gay bars, like in combat boots, but I'm like, I can't fucking wear combat boots to the strip club. She's like, all right, well, look, we'll just go and we'll see how you do. So we go to the stripper store.
There's a stripper store?
There were stripper stores back then.
You
Down
learn
in
something new
Squirrel
every
Hill.
day.
Squirrel Hill had a stripper store. I can't remember what it was. But
Strippers and that.
it was it was strippers and that. It had little like porn videos and then little cubby holes, I think, where people did whatever.
Yeah.
And then they had outfits and then they had heels and sex toys, right? That was what it was. So I went in and I got myself some heels and I was like, all right, well, we're gonna go. So we went, and the first night that I worked, I made $460, and I was probably from 9 to 2. And I thought, 460 one night or $960 an hour.
It's a no-brainer.
No brainer. Yeah. I was
wanna
like,
be
this
a
is my new
stripper
career.
too.
That's it.
Wow.
Yeah. That was 2003.
Did you have any issue? Now, was this like topless, fully nude? Like what
Well,
kind of stripping?
So I started out in West Virginia, 2003. So in 2003, it was not. Oh, in West Virginia, you could be fully nude on stage, no matter what. In Pennsylvania, you could only be fully nude if they didn't serve liquor
Okay.
at that time. So I was in West Virginia. It was a full nude bar. And, you sold champagne rooms, which actually did sell champagne back then. And so that's where I started. And then I ended up migrating to Pennsylvania, which was, a different variety of all kinds of things. Yeah.
So you're stripping for men.
Yeah.
Well, I know that women
Right.
do too, but
Sometimes.
so you're gay and stripping for men.
Yeah. I mean, I would say but people are like, are you gay all the way? Or, you'd be like, what? And I'm like, so it's real hard because, there's a scale or there's a spectrum now. I don't even know what goes on anymore. But I knew back then that I was emotionally only having feelings for women, where I wanted relationships with women. With men, I was in my 20s. I was physically like attracted to people, So I feel like sexually, like I had my ventures with men and women, and I was attracted to men, and I still can be attracted to men. It just doesn't turn into a love relationship.
Yeah.
So does that make me a lesbian? I don't know, because there are gold star lesbians who've never slept with men and are not attracted to men.
What's gold star lesbians?
I've never slept with a man before.
Okay. I'm learning some good shit today.
Right.
Gold star. Like, all right.
That's the term. So, I'm not that. I definitely enjoyed, like partaking in any type of physical interactions in my 20s and early 30s with both.
Sure.
So yeah, it was so stripping for men wasn't some awful thing, but it certainly helped to not really give a shit,
True,
if I'm gonna connect with somebody. Yeah.
Because men think they're going to connect with all strippers. They probably, right?
Yes.
Tell me you can get as much detail as you'd like. Give me some experiences that you kind of remember from those days.
Well, there are
Good
a
or
lot.
bad?
Yeah. So I actually wrote a book about this, and there's so much in that book about these experiences. And
What's the book called?
It's called Stripped Down.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of about it's about some of these things that we're going to talk about, but also about like how you strip down to the layers of your unconscious to find out like what's really running your life. And you have to kind of strip away the traumas to figure out like who you really are, So, but it's also about stripping your clothes. So it's kind of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So share some of the stories that are in that book.
I mean,
Give me like top 3.
so, wow. Are you sure I can say this here?
Yes. This is for 18 and over crowds.
Good.
My dad watches, but he's going to enjoy this part.
Great. Okay. So we'll go, let's see, top 3. Well, we'll go with like fetishes. Okay. So some of the most interesting fetishes I've seen, gosh, this is so, okay. So yeah, definitely 18 and up. There were a couple people that I ran into that like to drink pee or be peed on. So there was the pee fetish where they might come into the club and they're like, oh, can you pee in this cup for me? And then, he would enjoy it as a cocktail. Stripper pee, which sometimes wasn't stripper pee. It was sometimes bouncer pee. We just didn't tell him. He didn't care. So that's one example. Another one would be especially with me, like I have a presentation of like a little bit more masculine energy, or they automatically think I'm like a dominant one. I'm not, but like that's what I look like. So a lot of guys would be like, "Oh, I want you to like degrade me, treat them like sluts and call them names." Sometimes they'd have lingerie on underneath the suit, like fetishes. Like there were a lot of fetishes with like it being a submissive, being out of a place of power. So one guy, he would like you to just step on his junk, like real hard, and just, it took a lot for me to do that because I'm not naturally that person, but I'm like, oh, I got to channel some kind of part of me that can do this.
$100 is
So-
$100.
Right. More than that.
Oh
Yeah.
my-
Yeah.
Jeez, oh man.
Yeah. So there was that. I mean, my first instance as a stripper in a room is the funniest. And this is definitely in the book. So I'm barely getting through the stage, right? I'm up there, I'm praying to God that I don't fall off, trying to break in these heels. I'm like, oh my God, just let me get through this and let me get the money, which is in the rooms. So I get the champagne room. This guy's got to be about 80, 85, right? So he gets help back to the champagne room. I'm like, how am I going to do this? So I'm doing the lap dance, and it's just a small box of a room, little curtain just slides over. So as I'm dancing with him, I like take a break and I sit down next to him. So I sit down next to him. He takes my shoe off and he puts my toes in his mouth and he starts like, sucking on my toes. I'm like, okay, cool. But in the midst of that, his false teeth got dislodged and they fell out halfway down my foot. And he hurried up and scooped them back up and in. And I'm like, shit. And so then he was just happy and I didn't give a shit. When I left with, those couple $100, I'm like, fine.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
So that was great.
Now, you brought a friend who's sitting off camera,
Yeah.
Joe, and I'm trying not to look at her laughing at this stuff too.
Yeah.
Joe, is this all new to you or no? No. Okay. She said no if you couldn't hear.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Never gets old.
No.
Wow. So that's top 3.
Well, yeah. I mean, just to highlight,
Sure. Mm-hmm. Was it difficult for you to be fully nude in front of total strangers, or was that kind of just the easy part? I don't want to say easy part, but
It's not actually for me. I think that I inherited that a little. My mom, she was pretty free spirited, and from what I was told, she like did body paint when she was younger and like danced in cages. I mean, this is the 70s, So she was a hippie and burned her bra and all that. So I feel like I naturally just feel comfortable naked. Like I could just get naked and
Yeah.
it's not a big deal.
so I saw, I don't know if it was on Instagram, probably Instagram, because it's not really a place for Facebook, but you are very comfortable in your body.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting
Yeah.
photographed and yeah.
Yeah, I've never been self-conscious in that way. And I've always just felt like that was natural. It was something that never really made me feel insecure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah.
My dream house is a house where I can walk outside naked and probably not get arrested.
Right. I do it at my house and my neighbors either turn away or they look. I don't know. But I mean, I go out to my pool and I get in and I mean, it's,
I can't say that I blame you.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
comfortable too, but
yeah, I'm pretty open.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and people have judged me for that. Like, especially if it plays on their insecurities. They're like, oh, she just wants validation. Oh, she thinks she's real hot and she's just showing off. Or she has this exterior that looks good. So, that's like the bulk of who she is, like that's where she gets her sense of self-worth, which just isn't true.
Right.
I take care of my body because it's my house for my soul and I appreciate it. I look good. It brings me balance, health, wellness. The better my body is, the better I can do things in life. And it reflects the discipline and consistency that I believe in. So,
Isn't it crazy how the physical can be more mental than anything?
yeah.
Yeah. That's what I learned
Yeah.
in my journey as well. If I eliminated fitness nutrition, I would probably be in massive depression and hate life. And yeah,
Yeah.
it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Now, you said in your book, you said it's called Strip down. What else did you learn from the stripper life? Like, did you learn anything about you? And if so, what?
Yeah. I mean, I think during that time, it gave me really good practice to be a good therapist. I got to hear a lot of people's stories. I mean, it wasn't just about dancing. I would have regulars and they would tell me a lot of things about their life. I've already naturally been a good listener. I had the bachelor's degree and then eventually I was working on the master's, but I feel that it helped me to be a really good listener, but also open to all these subject matters. I can hear about people's fetishes or their deep sexual traumas or their sexual habits or addictions and be able to help them process that. So I think that did, enable me to be more versatile in that way.
Yeah. Not only, not to interrupt you, but not only help them process it, but also not be judgmental.
Yes.
Because you've heard it all.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm the same way with this show. You're episode 69.
Yeah.
I've heard it all.
Right.
And you added a lot of those just in this first 26 minutes. You added 10 more things that I've heard for the first time. So
Right.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
But anyway, so continue. Sorry.
No, that, and I think that what I learned about myself was that I could embrace feminine and masculine ways. Before I became a stripper, I was a little bit more tomboyish and had not embraced a lot of the femininity that I had as a female in a female body. And I think stripping actually brought me into that balance where I appreciated myself as a woman and I appreciated the masculine qualities too.
Got it.
So I loved that. And I would never take that back because that it did balance me out, make me feel comfortable with femininity, which I wasn't before.
Okay.
Yeah.
How would you feel if you had a daughter and she wanted to be a stripper? What would you say about that?
Well, I'd say, listen, for one, if you're going to do it sober. Do it stone cold sober, which is what I did. I didn't drink. I've never been drunk, actually. And I've only, had halves of beers and stuff and 1 shot or 2 shots in my life. But I've never been drunk and I've never been hungover. So I would say go. And if you're going to do that, you better be sober. If you can handle doing all that stone cold sober, then cool, do the job.
Meaning you are your true self, not being influenced by anything else.
Yes.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. When did you get out of that and why?
Okay, so 2003, I started, in 2010, I got out of it. And why? There was a lot of reasons, but the main one was because the industry started to get really gross. The crash of 2009, it was a big stock market crash in 2009. People were losing mad money. So it got bad. Like the clubs were not packed at all from 9 to I don't know when, because I got out of it in 10. But that was one reason, because it was just not lucrative. Another reason was I returned to my hometown from living in the city, and I worked at a very small club, and there was a lot more girls doing a lot more sex acts that were illegal in the clubs for cheap because they were on drugs. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is bad. People were coming in, getting blowjobs for $20, $25. Girls were so trashed that they were nodding off on stage. I saw a girl shoot up in the dressing room. I was like, I'm not doing this. I was like, this is horrible. And I was also just tired of it. I was tired. I was 30, 31, and I was just like, I can't do this much longer. And so that was, yeah.
I don't know how many people make a career out of that.
Right.
It's not really something that
Not going to retire.
retired from.
Yeah.
Not getting a 401k from being a stripper.
Right. It's horrible. Yeah. So it just got really gross. And I was in school for my master's, but I was going slow. But I definitely picked up the pace. And so I was becoming less interested in just being in that atmosphere. Yeah.
I mean, I think not changing as a person after being in that environment for 7 years would be difficult.
Right. I mean, it definitely has its downfalls. It definitely, I believe, that is a lot of dark energy. It is soul sucking. you can get very depleted of your light, of your closeness to like purity and your sense of moral. I had like a really bad relationship that I got in the middle of, well, right within the first 6 months of dancing. I got into a really toxic relationship with another girl who was also a stripper. She was like 8 years older than me, and she was very dark. And as a therapist, I can say confidently that she was a sociopath. So it was a very dangerous situation for me. I was physically abused. It was very scary. And throughout that, as well as the job, I became depleted. I really had some like dark energies hanging around me.
Yeah. Well, it's good you got out, I guess.
Yeah.
Because who knows what type of person you would have turned into.
Yeah.
So you mentioned stripping helped you be a better therapist. There should be a stripper podcast. Because that's kind of what this is.
Yeah.
Minus the nakedness.
Right.
But yeah, you're listening to people's stories.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Thoughts? I'm not going to be the one to do it. But
Somebody should.
There's an idea. Yeah. Okay. So you get out of that very toxic, ended up being very toxic life.
Yeah.
Back in Ohio.
Yeah.
What did you do next? Because you're probably making really good money.
I had regulars. So I sat on my ass in rooms and, didn't have to go on stage much because I never liked the stage. I hated it. I just wasn't good at it. I never climbed the pole. Terrible.
What kind of stripper are you, Teresa?
I know, right? The one that didn't climb the pole.
Jeez.
Terrible.
I thought that was a prerequisite.
No, not at all. Yeah, it was, I had a little routine. I'd go out there and be like, here's what you could get. Give me the real money. I'm not spinning around a pole for dollars, but some people did. It was fine.
That was that masculine energy you brought.
Right. I was like, we're not.
No, I'm
not doing this.
I'm the boss today.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And they like it. They like it. So many guys have asked me to peg them because of that energy. And I'm like, no, I'm not interested. No, you could pay me. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's so rude that you would ask. And I'm like, I don't want to pound you in your hairy ass. So no, unless I'm getting paid.
If I had a nickel for every time I heard someone say that, I would have a nickel.
You'd have a nickel.
Oh my god.
Oh man. Yeah, that was all the time. And I'd be like, no, I just have no desire to do that. If I'm going to be with a man, I'm going to lay down and enjoy something from having to be dominant with these women all the time. So I'm going to lay down and relax. I'm not getting up to do you. No. So, but yeah,
Good
what was
for
the
you,
question?
Girl. Damn straight. The question. What the hell was the question? What did you do? What did you do after stripping?
Okay. So I finally get done. And at first it was super rocky. I just was trying to finish that master's. So I went to my mom's and I kind of like, she'd help me out. Like I didn't have a lot of bills at the time, but I had some money. So I kind of lived on that. And I ended up finding a girlfriend again, who was, she was with somebody else. And then, we got together and we tried to have a relationship and we both got out of the industry. She had been a bartender and sometimes a dancer, but we both were like, we hate this, we're done. So she had a son and, we moved in together and tried to like have a normal life. But I just was not, I don't know, I wasn't happy. She wasn't happy. We were trying to run an after hours club, just kind of still staying in like the club industry. Yeah. That's all we knew. But the after hours club was bad. It was toxic. People were just getting too high and drunk and all this stuff. So I was like, something's got to change. And I found an internship and I also had like that emotophobia still. So I was like, I got to get rid of this if I'm going to be a therapist. So how do I get rid of this emotophobia? And some therapists at school said, hey, go here. One thing led to another. And they said, call this guy. He does something called emotion code. And I said, okay. So I call him on the phone and he's up from New Ken. He's close, but he was like, yeah, I'm going to connect with your energy and then we're going to release some trapped emotions and trapped energies in the quantum field and then you're going to feel better. And I'm like,
say what?
Okay.
You're going to do what to my who?
I'm like, sure. I have no idea at this point what any of this is. I said, I'll try anything. I don't care. I want to get past emotophobia. I've had it for 20 years. Yeah. So he does he does some releases on me. I talk to him again. He does some more releases. And I don't think anything of it because I wasn't nauseous all the time. But so I couldn't test this out. So eventually a few weeks go by, I was unloading a storage unit or something with friends and I felt nauseous. And I was like, oh gosh, I feel like kind of nauseated. I feel like I'm gonna throw up. Normally I would have went into like a panic and like really freaked out, but I didn't. And I was like waiting for the panic. It never came. And I was like, oh, no shit. I was like, I'm still nauseous, but I'm not panicking. And this is manageable. So I was like, I got to give this a real try. So I started doing more emotion code, releasing more things. And then all of a sudden, the antidepressant I was on for 14 years actually stopped working. Like I was in full withdrawal from Effexor, which is a horrible antidepressant. And I was like so sick, even though I would take the medication, it wasn't doing anything. So I was forced to get off of it. So that's when my life changed. I went and moved back in with my mom. The relationship ended. I'm in this terrible withdrawal and I'm looking for a solution. I'm like ready to go to like check myself into somewhere. And I called the guy and I said, hey, I need help. And he was like, give me 20 minutes. So he did some kind of work on me. And about 40 minutes after, I got up off the floor and my mom was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I think I'm okay. And she was like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. And so I called him and he said, oh, I released this and I did that. Enough for me to be able to maintain the withdrawal and handle it. Yeah. So at this point, I'm sold on energy work, at least the emotion code.
Sure. Now, without, I guess, selling the farm.
Yeah.
What exactly does one of these sessions look like, or what's happening?
Well, I mean, you can do this in person, but this was on the phone. So I didn't get to see him, but what it looks like is you muscle test the person, like muscle kinesiology, where you might have seen it where they take their arm, they push it down and that goes weak or it stays strong. So it's like you're tapping into their energy and their unconscious, asking it yes or no questions. And they're asking, is there something hidden or is there a trapped energy behind what's causing this problem showing up? And you get a yes. And I do muscle testing just like this with my fingers. This would be a yes, this would be a no. But I had to learn that. And then, so he's asking these questions and then finding out these trapped energies around memories in the body and in the unconscious that would create you to be feeling this way. Or that there's a virus or there's some kind of like, toxin that you might be able to also then neutralize to help the person recover from whatever the issue is being presented.
Wow.
And then you release it with a magnet because, we're all in this electromagnetic field. The earth has a big electromagnetic field around it. So you use a magnet to roll down your meridians and you can release it from the person at a distance only because of quantum physics and quantum entanglement.
What?
Right. Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't believe that this works because obviously
You want to see it?
Yeah.
Give me your hand so we can do this.
Oh my gosh.
So take a breath first and just like,
Should I be nervous?
no,
Okay.
you're a strong guy. So I can't pull your fingers apart, right? If you wanted to resist me, you could resist me.
I would think.
Right? So go ahead and put your fingers, just this one.
What am I doing?
You're going to put your ring finger and your thumb together.
Okay.
Okay? Just
A ring finger.
Yeah. Right? And so you're going to be strong. You're not going to let me pull these apart. Relax the other ones though. Yeah, just these. You're not going to let me pull that apart, right? No, I can't pull it apart. What is this?
That's a glass.
Look at it and say, that's a glass.
That's a glass.
Great. Now look at that glass and say, that is an elephant.
That is an elephant.
Resist me.
That's an elephant. That.
Right. So your body says, no, it's not. I'm not programmed to believe that. So I'm going to be weak. And that's how you get answers from the body. Isn't that weird?
So it's like kind of like a lie detector test in a way.
Ish. But like from what you're programmed to know. So if I have something happened to me when I was 10 and I have negative energies around it and I ask, it'll be like, yes. And then we can ask about these columns and rows and like how to release these emotions, which have a vibration and a frequency. And then we release them and the person feels better. Yeah. But you can't ask like, hey, were you at Target last night? I mean, it might work,
Yes. No.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Now, for those of you who are listening or watching and have never heard of emotion code like me, what, I guess, who should be doing this? Like, who would benefit from this?
People with trauma, people that are trying to get past maybe trauma that has happened in their life, emotionally, mentally, physical traumas like I've had with medical traumas and such. Or if you have like the same situation that keeps showing up in your life, like if you're a people pleaser and
Guilty.
yeah, if you're a people pleaser and you can't seem to stop that pattern, we're going to go and try to release some things at a energy level in your body and your subconscious that would free you up to be able to make a different decision. So it doesn't change it automatically, but it gives you the space to tame down the fire that had been, around causing this to be this way, so that you can like say, okay, if I make a different choice, am I going to get so reactive? You will not be as reactive.
Wow.
Yeah. Or if you have an addiction, root causes of addiction are a lot of memories and experiences that you've had. So you neutralize that, and the addiction just kind of,
wild.
it gets help. Yeah.
So you don't actually do this practice?
Yeah, I'm certified.
Oh, you do it.
As soon as that happened to me and I saw how good it worked as a therapist, I said I would never, ever be a therapist unless I could practice this with it. So I got certified through Dr. Nelson, Bradley Nelson, emotion code practitioner. He's the one who invented it. So I went and got certified through that system, and I've been doing it on people ever since. It's in my practice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does it help with insecurities and stuff like that?
It can. I mean, depending on the root cause of the insecurity, we would ask, what causes you to be insecure? Maybe there's an event that happened when you were 5. Maybe something happened in school. It could be anything. It could be even as far as in the womb, something that your mom experienced that you picked up in the 2nd and 3rd trimesters, usually. Wow. Yeah. That's a lot.
I might be getting a hold of you.
Yeah.
For a session or so.
That'd be cool.
Very curious how it could help.
Yeah.
I mean, we all struggle with something, right? We don't always know the root cause of it. If we did, we probably wouldn't struggle with it, or we'd fix it on our own.
Right.
So
and then the unconscious is just a big computer. It stores everything, and it doesn't care what you think. Right. It's like, oh, you fell off the swing when you were 5. You were wearing a yellow dress, and there was a green car across the street, and you were sucking on a lollipop that was red. Well, that's what it remembers.
It's just facts.
That's it.
It's a historical database.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so, you're like, oh, your parents cheated on each other when they were little. That's what it's like to be with a man, and that's what it's like to be with a woman. So that's what we will see show up in your life, whether you like it or not, because that's what we believe is the truth. And that's also what we think is safe, because when we're developing human beings, we want to be safe. Safety and security is the first thing we develop. So if our parents are cheating on each other, but they love us still, and we're still part of the household, that's safe. That's
Sure.
what we do.
Yeah.
So even though we want a monogamous relationship and a great partner, we're not going to get it. We're either going to become our parent that cheated in order to sabotage it before it happens, or we'll become the person who got cheated on and have to endure it and lose the relationship anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've brought up the word relationship a lot. It sounds like, don't take this the wrong way, it sounds like you've been in a lot.
Yeah.
In and out of a lot.
Yeah.
And, you said your attraction for females is mainly emotional.
Oh, sorry.
Someone didn't put their phone on silent.
It's an alarm.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize I would have
What's
an
the alarm for?
To take some folic acid.
Do you need to stop to take some
I
folic
don't.
acid?
Okay.
I don't have any on me, so.
Well, and that's a whole nother issue with the mold debacle that we have coined. Me and this person over here have coined the term disaster in our life has made me realize I have a folate deficiency, blah, blah, whole other subject. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, relationships.
Yeah. So again, you said your attraction for females is mainly emotional.
Well, no, it's everything, but yeah.
But okay. So why do you feel like you haven't found that right relationship yet?
Oh gosh. So this is a big one. Since the beginning of when I started writing my book, I wrote about the first relationship I was in that I described to you the girl who wanted the pills. But my relationship life got programmed by my parents, which was there's always going to be more than one person involved. There's not no total monogamy there, and there's going to be cheating and leaving and all of that. So when I went to have my first relationship, I was like so in love. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is the best thing that ever happened. I finally know that I'm like love women. And so I put everything I had into it and I was all in, but we were 16, 15 years old and we were Catholic and they were like, her parents were like, you can't be gay. And I was like, oh, and my mom was like, okay with it. My dad, very open, but hers wasn't. So she would sneak to see me and she was like, look, I love you, want to be with you, but I have to go date these boys in order to like cover this up. And so that moment, I remember sitting in my window crying in my little bowl of Raisin Bran because I wasn't chosen. I wasn't the only one and I couldn't have who I wanted to have just for myself. And so, you know, instead of saying to her in that moment, this isn't what I want. I don't want to share. I just want to be with just you. And if this is what you have to do, I'm going to leave. I didn't have the strength to do that. I didn't want her to go anywhere. I was in love. I was 15 and I self-abandoned in order to keep the girl there. So that's what I continued to do.
So you just suffered in your own misery.
Yes.
Just to hang on to whatever you had.
Yes.
Huh.
And I continued to do that over and over and over. Yeah.
Why do you think you continue to do that?
I think that I watched my mom do that. And I think that she did that over and over as well. And, you know, till she died early. She died at like 62 of cancer everywhere in the body. And I found letters that she wrote that was like, this is all I have. This is what's left of my life, you know, in these relationships. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons. And I think that when you have a 15-year-old experience, it shapes your life. It programs you to think that that's what love always needs to look like.
Yeah.
So I developed like more of an anxious type of attachment style based on that. And I would do what the woman wanted or be what she wanted, you know, in order to keep it, right? But then I would be like angry and resentful because I wasn't getting my, like what I wanted.
Your cup wasn't being filled.
Yeah. So then I would be shitty and cold and distant and cranky. And then, you know, they would cheat on me and I would forgive them and take them back. And I really wouldn't be able to like fully forgive because there was still resentment and anger in there. So I would kind of create the same circumstance again. And then I would be cranky and distant. They'd be like, well, I'm not attracted to you because you're cranky and distant. But yet, you know, I couldn't fully put all this love and trust into it because of the end result continue. You know what I mean?
Vicious cycle.
Yeah.
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 Do you think, look, we all want to be loved, right? Do you think you struggled with self-worth?
Yes. So I didn't realize that it was a self-worth issue until I did emotion code on myself. So I'm doing emotion code on myself for this issue. And there's a thing that we have called addictive heart energy. It's where there's a strong emotion that almost becomes you're addicted to it, even though you don't want to feel it. And mine was unworthy. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, I did not know this was connected to self-worth. And so then I started like studying about self-worth and the unconscious and like how it's so deep in there. And if there's one woman on YouTube who I love that she was like, yeah, did your dad cheat on your mom? Did you watch this? Did you watch that? Then you got a self-worth issue and take my course called Worthy as Fuck. And I'm like, oh.
That's really what it's called?
Yeah.
It's an awesome name.
Yeah, she's from Australia. She's real cutthroat. But I was like, oh, okay, cool. I was like, that is exactly what my issue is. So 100%.
Do you think that's ever going to go away?
Yeah. I think that you have to do a few things. I feel like when it's embedded that deep as it was in myself, I had to excavate things, you know, a little clearing with emotion code, Reiki, things like that. And then to do some like nervous system rewiring, you know, breath work, meditation, body work, working out, that all helps. But I did EMDR, which is really powerful technique in the psychological world, where it starts to rewire and reprocess your experiences and your memories. That was really huge to get rid of my medical trauma. I did not get rid of my medical trauma until I did EMDR. So I did that for that. And then I was doing that for the relationship stuff too. And then everything started to shift and change around me, even up to recently. So it's a really powerful thing that, so I think that with that, and then the consistency with a new story. What's the new story? Why can't you tell a new story? Why do you have to continuously tell the story of my mom and dad did A, B, C, and D? What if you just not gaslight yourself, but what if you selected a different version of what happened and put that into your brain? Now your brain doesn't give a shit. It just knows what you put in there. So if I have dogs and I want them to go out the back door instead of the front, I just repeat it until they end up going out the other door. But they're not going to do it at first. They're going to keep going back to the default.
Is victim mentality, is that kind of what's happening when you keep replaying that same terrible story? Like, I don't want to say you're using it as a crutch because it obviously formed behaviors, but are you sort of removing the victim mentality from that trauma and, like you said, rewriting that story?
Yeah. So I think that victim mentality is similar to what people call fate.
Yeah.
And like, oh, that's just the way it is.
Yep.
Or that's just what God dealt me, the cards that were laid. That's victim mentality. And I felt a prisoner actually for a long time. I didn't feel free. I'm like, I feel like a prisoner to what? To the world, to God, to astrology, to karma. I was like, fuck all that. I'm like, this is my own prison. And I'm the only key that can get me into a different place. And if I can free myself, then I can live a different reality. I'm not destined to be this because of what happened at 3, 4, fucking and 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If someone's watching isn't triggered by this, I mean, I guess that's a good thing because I think a lot of people, I don't want to say make excuses for the type of person they are today, but it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Because of things that happened decades ago. But you can, like you said, unlock that cell door of your own prison if you really want to.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, it takes tools, and you've had to find, I guess, I don't want to say out of the box tools to do it, but I didn't hear of any of the stuff that you talked about today, emotion code and EMDR. I wouldn't have known to try that if I was suffering. So you're learning something, guys. Like the video, because, this is not only for you to get this shit off your chest, but it's also to educate the viewer and maybe help them.
And that's really what my life has been about. The last 12 years of my life since my mom passed and I had the big life change, I was like, well, I guess I'm doing this work. It's not that I ever had like a real connected passion to being a therapist. That's really the only thing I could do in school that was worth a shit. But I felt like it was natural in some way. So I do believe that whenever I learn something, I apply it. And I'm really diligent and consistent and committed to that. And then it ends up showing up in other people coming to me.
Yeah.
They call it the wounded healer, stuff like that. And I just feel like as I learn and grow and continuously level up, people come to me that have these issues and that I'm like, well, I have this for you now.
Yeah. You have all these tools now that you can share with others because they've worked on you.
Right. And I would never, ever do anything or say to do anything that didn't work. That's why I didn't want to be a therapist if I couldn't get rid of the emotive phobia, because I'm like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Read from a book?
Yeah. It's almost like you're a hypocrite if you're teaching things that you haven't even practiced on your own.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not easy. And they also call it shadow work. This is also coined as, Carl Jung shadow work, deep unconscious work. But when I tell this to people that are not ready to hear it, I'm like, you are the cause. You are the creator of your reality that you see around you. They're like, bullshit. That person did this. My dad did this. My mom did this. They're that. That's and you see it all over Instagram, all over social medias, even in coach land. They're like, yeah, boundaries, stay away from this type of guy, that girl, stay away from the situation. What about how you're attracting it? What about what's in you that wants that? you know? Like
Yeah.
you're going to coach them to hold a boundary so they're isolated on an island forever. But what happens to them? Do they ever get into a relationship? You're going to be triggered by people to help you because people only reflect what is inside of yourself.
Yeah.
And so if you do not get triggered by people, you're cool. Life's fine. I'm fine single. I'm a coach and I'm teaching people how to be, you know, so great and tough with men. The hell you're not.
Yeah. As you flip your hair.
You know, yeah. I'll get real girly for a second. I'm a coach. Nah, bitch. You're just telling people to stay locked in their pattern and try to manage this world around them instead of going in and managing yourself. Freeing yourself from all of that unconscious material, shining the light on your unconscious, because unconscious don't like to be seen. It's the basement. It's the dark. It's the shadow. It's what we don't want to see. So once you shine the light on that, you're aware, and then you have to practice and you have to be diligent. You have to actually repeat the new story and repeat new habits and new thought. If you don't repeat new thought, you'll have old thought, old feeling, and old result. That's it.
Yeah. You're getting me fired up, girl.
Yeah, good.
Let's go. All right, back to relationships.
Yeah.
You recently got out of a long relationship. You said it was 4 years or so.
Yeah.
This is very fresh. Do you mind explaining kind of what happened?
Yeah. So right before I got into this relationship, 2019, 2020, COVID happened, and I was super sick physically. I had a mold poisoning, and because you mentioned that at the beginning, we were going to talk about it. So here it is. So I had mold poisoning, and I thought I would die for certain. That was the worst physical thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. There was a few of us at a facility that I was working at. There was a flood, and we didn't know that mold was growing in there until all of us started kind of dropping off like flies. There were 3 of us who actually really, really got sick. First it was one girl, and then it was me, and then it was the third person, right? So we all started getting deathly sick. I mean, lost 18, 20 pounds, couldn't eat. I was having reactions as if like I'd have a piece of food and I would have like an anaphylactic reaction. I had mast cell activation disorder. I had POTS-like symptoms. I thought I would never make it through this experience.
And you didn't know what was causing this at the time.
I didn't directly know. The first person found out that it was mold and that was dangerous. So we found a doctor who's a functional MD, you have to pay cash, who did like mold testing and figured out like, hey, mold can really affect you in this way and it can hijack your brain too. So my limbic system was a mess. I was so miserable. So I was trying to recover from this mold illness. 2020, COVID happened. Everybody's quarantined, but I'm so sick, I'm quarantined anyway. So whatever. So 2021, I'm starting to get a little better, but I'm still not great. I'm trying to live life though, because we were all quarantined. I was like, I want to do something. So I met this person, through another mutual friend who was like actually an ex. And I was like, we're talking. She's cool, but she was like a lot younger than me, like 16 years younger than me. So I was like, 25 and a half, 26 when I met her. So I'm like, all right, there's a big age difference, but this is cool. So, she was interested in energy work and Reiki, and we started doing all those things together. And, at first I thought, okay, this isn't going to be much of anything, but it's fun. It's something to do. But she was like pushing more for like, the relational part of it fast. And so I was like, okay, I kind of rolled with it. But then very quickly, she started, wanting to be with other people and like doing that without like telling me. Right. So of course I found out about it and I was like upset. But at first I'm like, I can't be that mad. She's young and this situation wasn't that serious. So I kind of blew it off.
You're justifying it.
I did. I blew it off. Second time, she was like, I thought we were in an open thing. I thought that like that me doing this would be okay. And I was like, yeah, no, it wasn't. And I'm like, I just don't feel good about this. And so, eventually she was like, I'm going to go live this lifestyle where I'm going to be like a polyamorous person. And I said, okay, you live that life. So like that kind of went on for a few months, but I kept hanging in there like I always do, kind of hanging in a little, until the point where it was like, okay, I'm okay to just be with you and let's do this. So, that happened. And then as that's happening, now I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in the committed relationship. We're living together. But what do you think happened in my mind? In my mind, I'm like, when is she gonna?
Yep.
She gonna want to be with somebody else? When is she gonna cheat?
Self-sabotage.
In my unconscious, and then I'm like, oh well, this has to show up somewhere. So what do you think she started doing? Oh, cheating, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm pointing at her, saying, you're so terrible. I'm so upset. Why was I upset? I created this.
So do you blame yourself when you think your thoughts into reality? Like, because you had that thought that she was going to cheat again, that's why it happened. Fate.
I mean, no,
jinxing, whatever the term.
none of that. I just think that like my thoughts will be reflected to me.
Okay.
They'll be
So
shown.
you're being punished in a way
No.
thinking that?
By who? No.
Okay.
It's just a fact.
Yeah.
Like if that's the way I'm programmed to see life and see relationship, then, and I haven't really changed that yet, then that's going to happen. But I didn't really know this yet at that point, like to the degree that I know it now. So, I shifted it. Like we did some therapy and like, yeah, she has her things too that she's dealing with. She has a set of programs from her parents and her life is playing out as in commitment. It doesn't work out for my family. There's issues on that end of it where, I have fear of commitment. She had a kid at 19 years old, stayed with the kid's dad for years. They tried to force her into an engagement and marriage. So she wants to break free from that. And I was like a representation of that freedom. But then I became the prison to her because when I wanted the committed monogamous relationship, she's like, oh no, I have to break free from that. So she had her own thing going on, which was perfect to feed my story that I've always held for decades. So this went back and forth. But as I healed, I started to see different things show up. So for a while there, it was really good. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. And as long as I kept up with my new line of thinking and my self-worth and all of that, it was good. But as soon as I started to default, because I got lazy, inconsistent, lack of discipline, just wanted to kind of live life every day. I didn't want to work at that. It would go back. It would revert back. So this last time I was like, oh, wow, okay, this happened again. And this time it was worse. It was really bad because I had like really got sucked into the emotion of anger with it and was like really pissed and was like, this is terrible that this is happening. And I have gone through a big loss, losing her and her son out of my house and out of my everyday life is hurts. I hurt. However, if I let that person be like, hey, I still want to hang out with you and hang out with these other people. I still want to be your friend and do this with others. Then I'm going to do the same thing I did at 15 and say, yes, sure, go do that because I love you and I don't want to lose all of you. I don't want to lose all of what we had. And I'm going to abandon what I want again to keep shreds of these things here, but I can't do that again. So when I say no to that, it's extremely painful.
This is a sign of growth for you, though.
Huge.
That you actually put an end to it, because 20-some-year-old Teresa probably would have just kept on going, right?
Yeah, even just 3-4 years ago, Teresa did. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll be a part of the poly life. Maybe I'm supposed to be that. Made me question myself and what I wanted. But part of me, my subconscious, wanted that because it fits its story. My subconscious looked at me and said, yeah, you want to be poly? Yeah. You want to have third parties and stuff because that's what we do. That's safe. If you go and try to do anything else, we don't know how to do that because you haven't created a new program in my computer to show me how to do that. Yeah. But I have now, and that's why I'm able to see the two things at simultaneously. Do
you feel like, this is a new thing for you? Okay, that just happened 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You made a pretty breakthrough decision that you've never really done before. Do you feel like it was the wrong choice? Like, is it that fresh that, oh, maybe I made a mistake? Or are you confident that you're doing the right thing for yourself?
I mean, I think that it is so fresh that yes, I was like, because in my moment of anger and like packing her things, I said, oh, this is, if I do this, I cross over into ending this pattern. So part of me said, no, I'm doing this. And part of it was out of like anger and wanting to, respect myself. But then as soon as I did it, a couple days later, I was like, oh my gosh, I want it back. I can't believe I did this, and I tried to get that back. And, that wasn't happening at that point. She was like, no, I can't do that now. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, what did I do? But like, that's going to kind of be back and forth in that space, because I know that like the injured part of me is sad and grief and loss and, feels terrible.
Yeah.
But the other part of me is saying, look how much I've learned since this happened. I was like just about to do this shadow work course with a breathwork facilitator friend of mine who's amazing. And she said, do you want to do a shadow work course with me? I said, yeah. It's supposed to start June 16th. And today's June 14th. And this happened a couple weeks ago. And I have learned so much more about the unconscious and more about the shadow and about forgiveness. Forgiveness is something I didn't really practice.
Forgiving yourself or others?
Both.
Both.
Harder to forgive myself. And I hadn't forgiven myself for a lot. I even had to have a conversation with my dad the other day. So with this shadow work piece, I would have taught this course without the forgiveness part. And it's a huge component. Huge.
Another tool for you.
Yeah. I mean, how amazing it is to like go through these forgiveness meditations and realize that you're forgiving yourself as well as your mom, your dad, the people of the past. Just, man, it's really powerful.
Wow.
Yeah.
This goes beyond relationships, Teresa. This isn't just, getting out of a toxic relationship or, having self-worth for the first time in your life. This gets into your career and putting the work into your career or any other thing, right? Like you have to put work in. And you admitted you got complacent. You got comfortable. You weren't doing the day-to-day effort, and look what happened.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what happens to your body too.
To your body, to your job,
yeah.
to everything else.
Yep.
Right? You got to put the work in.
Yeah.
The world's not going to hand you everything because you're an entitled Karen. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
Right?
And there's no fate that's being like, you have to stay in this shit position because you're born into it. That's not true either.
Make the fucking change.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Typically, at this point in the show, I would offer you a drink.
Okay.
But you don't drink.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because of emotophobia.
Oh.
So when I was younger, everybody's partying and throwing up everywhere. And I'm like,
fun.
Oh, fuck this. I'm like, I'm not drinking alcohol. Plus, I don't like to feel like dizzy and loopy.
Right.
And so because of those fears, I never got started. Plus, I found out during the whole mold issue, I had like genetic testing, and I have a gene that's red as can be that says does not tolerate alcohol. So if I have alcohol, I get literally like a Japanese person. I get histamine responses like I do not feel well.
I was going to say, let's go. I'm going to see it. No, I'm just joking. No, I don't want anybody dying on this show. It would not be good. That's a really interesting reason to not have ever drank.
I know. It's I feel like that was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Because I've done only one drug in this life, and it's been cocaine. And I couldn't even really go hard with that either because I was just a sensitive person. And until the mold, I didn't know my genetic makeup to see how sensitive that I really was to chemicals. Like chemicals don't leave my body very easily because of a slow COMT, genetic SNP, blah, blah, technical stuff. But when I get chemicals backed up inside of me, like dopamine, even a neurotransmitter, or, you give me some alcohol, it doesn't get out of my liver very easily. I don't detoxify fast. So I get really miserable. When other people that have ADHD or, that love caffeine, like they burn through all their neurotransmitters, are like, give me more, give me more, give me more. And I'm not that at a genetic level. So I feel like it's a blessing. And it was also hard too, because I couldn't get the mold out. Yeah.
I would imagine being in the industries that you used to be in, it's probably hard to not be influenced or under the influence to like numb yourself from people sucking on your feet and their dentures are falling out. Like
how I did it.
How did you do that sober?
I don't know. It's a part of, I didn't even do cocaine at work because I would get antisocial and want to just hole up, but I didn't ever really partied too hard on coke. I mean, it's always been there because it's part of the industry, right? strippers and cocaine. I mean, they said it on The Hangover, right? So like that's what you seek out. So sure, I mean, I've done lines of coke off stripper vaginas and everybody's done it off of us and fine. But like I've never gotten so fucked up to where, I was at a job doing that. So my job was dead ass sober. All the shit that I've done, the stuff that I've seen, dancing with parties, because I did bachelor parties for a long time. I had to have sex with women in front of men, which was kind of fake, but they were like, thought it was great, for money. And so it's like, I did all that sober. Meanwhile, the girls I was doing that with were fucking 10 shades fucked up.
They probably don't remember any of it.
They probably don't remember half the shit. They're going to read my book and be like, oh.
That was me.
I was that bitch that fell asleep on stage while I was twerking? Yeah.
God.
She'll never remember.
There's been so many phrases said for the first time ever on this show, like doing coke off a stripper's vagina.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
And if that happens again, I'm going to be shocked. My next guest.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted.
Sorry.
I'm joking.
Yeah, no, that's really the bulk of it. I think that I do want to say this. I do wear this bracelet. Okay. And it's John 14:6. I am a Catholic. I grew up Catholic. I'm not a traditional Catholic, and I'm also not a Christian the way you would see it. But this verse came to me when I was really sick with mold. And I was like, what does that mean? John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, the life. And so as I started reading about it, I read one author, and he was talking about Jesus presenting to you a way that you could be free. And he was saying, like, your belief is what kind of gets you into a position. A lot of the people that he would encounter said your faith has healed you in scripture. And what does that mean? Faith is belief. Your belief will actually make something happen. So I started saying like, oh, wow, in this mold hell. And I was talking to God, because I do believe that God is a co-creator with me. I don't believe this all comes from me. And it's not like I don't pray and ask for higher power of God to be with me, but it's a co-creation thing. And I think God can kick you in your ass, just like he did to me in 2011 into 2012 to put me in this emotion code thing. But I don't think that happens often. I think that we have free will because we're here to learn and grow as a soul. But I do believe that higher energy is, we have access to the I am. We have access to that to bring it down within inside of us, whether you call it Holy Spirit or the I am or whatever, life force energy. We have to be able to incorporate that in, because we're not here to do it by ourselves. So I think that's the only other thing that I wanted to say, so people don't get the wrong idea that like it's all just within my subconscious.
Yeah. You have a lot of tattoos.
Yeah.
Are there any that mean more than others?
Nope. They don't. Well, yeah.
They don't mean shit.
Well, a lot of them were done like, I had my first tattoo in 99, 98, or maybe even 97. Yeah. So like I started getting tattooed because my mom and dad and the other guy were bikers. So,
Comes with the territory.
Biker bitch getting tattooed, so I got a couple tattoos, and then in 2003 and 4, I had like 5 or 6, which that was a lot for being a stripper. Like they didn't like tattoos. In fact, I couldn't get hired at certain places back then because I had tattoos. Now it's like a free for all. But like, so I started getting tattooed because I liked it and enjoyed the art. And then there was a point in time where I had like a heartbreak with a relationship. The first one after my mom died, she totally broke my heart. And so that was like my first heartbreak in the new energy of past, her passing. And I started getting tattoos to cover up that pain. So this big ass chest piece of a owl with an anatomical heart and some claws in there. This is all cover-ups, but this is all about a female. This is all me trying to cover my heart chakra and protect myself from emotional pain, and to cover up turn wounds into wisdom type of shit. So yeah, some of them.
So when you look at those tattoos in the mirror, does that remind you of things, or is it just that's your skin now? Like
I don't see it that much.
You don't see it like that
No,
anymore.
not much. I just got a new one here, peonies, because now I'm a little bit more soft, and they're flowers.
Well, you did flip your hair earlier, so yeah. You're definitely getting soft. What's the most painful one you've had?
My leg. I would never get my calf tattooed or my leg tattooed below the knee again. It was
Really?
horrible. Yeah. My
I would
legs
not have
swole.
thought that.
Well, I was also like was in the mold poisoning and I didn't know it. So I was very inflamed. So anything that came into my system actually inflamed me more. So all of this tattoo actually, it's not finished because I couldn't get tattooed.
Couldn't
on
handle it.
Yeah, I couldn't. I couldn't actually have any needle or anything near me, not even an MRI machine for 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It was horrible. That when I say that experience was horrible, I wrote all about it and it's horrible. Yeah. So
What's the most interesting location you have a tattoo?
I really got to think.
My butthole.
No, nothing like that actually.
Oh, I'm shocked.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything
I guess
much.
this is kind of
Oh yeah,
unique.
yeah. And I had like one here, but I had it
Oh,
removed.
wow, I didn't even see that.
It's faded
fading,
out
yeah.
because I had the
Laser.
laser.
removal,
Yeah. But that's it. Other than that, just like right above my like like under
Yeah.
the navel. But
Yeah.
no grand hidden tattoos.
I don't have a single one,
Yeah.
and I want to get one, but I'm on blood thinners now
Oh.
because I almost died a couple months ago because my whole right leg clotted.
Oh wow.
Because of COVID. The doctors aren't telling me that.
But that's
They're blaming it on a bunch of other shit.
of course.
But, that's what they do.
Yeah.
But I want to get a tattoo, but I don't know if I can.
I think you have
Any
to just
doctors
wait.
up in here? Comment below. Am I allowed to get a tattoo while on blood thinners? I don't know.
Yeah. You might be able to. Even something small because you don't really bleed.
I don't want to get something small.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
I'm not a 15-year-old girl. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to get a dolphin on my,
Yeah.
I want to go big. If I'm
Yeah.
going to get something, it's going to be this big chest, shoulder
Yeah.
thing.
Well, you won't be on blood thinners forever.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It might be. Just for, safety sake.
Right.
So I can sleep at night, literally and figuratively.
And this wasn't from the jab.
We may never know. I had the first one. And then, so 2 weeks before I realized I was clotting, my girlfriend had COVID. I was asymptomatic. I didn't know if I had it or not. But after all my procedures to get the clots out and I had recovered, I got the antibody test and it was positive. So I think I got COVID from her. I don't know if that caused it or if it was from the first jab back in, 2020 or something.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be both.
We may never know.
Yeah.
So anyways, I still have clot. Like I just had an ultrasound 3
Yeah.
weeks ago. That's still in there. It was crazy. I'll show you pictures when we're done.
Yeah.
You're going to be
Perfect.
like, holy shit.
Oh, I
of
get
what
it.
they pulled out of me.
I get what I've heard all the things and, I was spared from the shot because of the mold sensitivity thing. I couldn't get any more types of vaccines or any of that bullshit anymore. Yeah.
We have one more thing to do, Teresa. We arm wrestle.
Okay.
You seem like you're ready. Like you saw it coming. Some guests have seen episodes before.
Yeah.
And they're totally prepared for this.
Okay.
And then others are like, wait, we have to do this?
Yeah.
Which one are you? Oh, wait, we have to do
I'm
this?
down. Let's do it.
Yeah, you seem like you're
We're
kind of
going
up for anything.
left-handed or are we going?
No, we're going right-handed.
Right-handed?
I'm
Okay.
a right-hander, so.
All right.
And I'm going to ask you a question as we do this.
Okay.
You start when you're ready, Teresa.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Oh, man, you're strong. She's got some pipes. All right, Teresa, you've grown a lot in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, what is the 5-year future Teresa look like to you?
The 5-year me. I'm going to be stronger.
Speak it into existence.
The 5-year me is stronger. Stronger physically too, because I've been working on training more lately. I see myself, getting more into tweaks with my body. I'm 46, so I want to make sure that I'm aging properly and with keeping muscle mass. So I think that journey, as well as I don't think I'll be seeing people one-on-one as a therapist anymore with just like basic therapy problems. Hey, I need a new routine, or I have a depression and anxiety. I think I'm going to be doing much deeper work.
Specialized stuff.
Yeah. I think I'm going to be working with more groups of people. I have a feeling that that's coming in that way, where everything is eclectic and all put together into one thing. I see myself like book published. I see myself writing another. financially growing in that way with abundance. And I see myself potentially in 5 years having a really awesome connection and relationship from the new story and the new model that I have engaged myself in my brain. And, yeah.
Do you see yourself, it's kind of like an addiction in a way, right? Do you think you're going to relapse?
Fuck no.
Good. Good for you. Now, back to the therapy thing. If I walked into the room and I saw you as a therapist, I'd be like, all right, this is going to be interesting.
Right.
You're not your typical.
No.
Right. I can say that without you getting pissed off.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm online, but when people do see me, it's most of them are more relaxed because they're like, oh,
she's a normal, real person.
Yeah, we thought you were going to be this stuffy therapist who was speaking all clinically. Yes. Yeah. So they're like usually relieved. But once in a while, I'll have the person who wants more clinical and they want to, have it be a certain way, and I'm not for them, and I'm not a fit, and that's cool.
Yeah. that is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you should shop around for a therapist and find a fit. But yeah, and this is full disclosure because I used to read a lot of books by Irvin Yalom. He's one of the existential therapists who, has a lot of books out there about it. And he said he's fallen asleep in therapy sessions before. He was like, I'm bored, Yeah. So if I'm working with somebody who wants to stay too shallow, too surface and not dig deep, I'm going to get bored. And I'm just sitting there just listening to you every week. And that shit, I'm not going to be doing much anymore. Yeah. I mean, I'll do it, but I did a lot of things for money before. So I'll sit there and listen to you for money. That's cool. But I'm not going to do that for forever, Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Teresa, I have to admit, I didn't expect this. Okay. I didn't know what to expect. There's certain episodes where I'll have a pretty good idea of how it's going to go, the things we're going to talk about, the vibe. This is one of those where I'm just like, we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And I am completely thrilled of how this went and the conversation. Very entertaining.
Good.
You're an amazing person. You're kind of like, I don't know, you're my spirit animal in a way.
All right. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I feed off of energy with other people,
Yeah. What's your sign?
Pisces.
Oh, I love it. That's why. You're a water sign. I have a lot of Scorpio in my chart. So
we're the same age
perfectly.
too.
Yeah. Okay.
So when you were talking about like building muscle mass and stuff, like I'm starting to find things are a lot more difficult now.
Yeah.
Not 46 is old, but
yeah. Well, hey, I contacted Aubrey.
Yeah, you did.
And I said, hey, I need some more muscle. She was like, let's do it.
Yeah. And Aubrey's the reason you're here, kind of.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
Thanks, Aubs.
Thank you.
She's great.
Yeah.
Any questions for me before we close out?
I'm curious, like, what is your hope for your podcast in the next 5 years?
That's a good question. I mean, look, anybody who puts in the effort that I put in if you're a podcaster or an entrepreneur or whatever, you know how it is. Like you're putting in all this work and sometimes it feels like you're not getting what you put in back, right? Sometimes I feel like that. And then I have to remind myself, this isn't about me. This is about whoever sits in that seat, right? And it's about the viewer, whatever they're going to get out of this conversation. So yes, do I want this to grow to 1 million subscribers? Sure, that would be awesome. But realistic goals, I just want to help as many people as I can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I know you've helped dozens, hundreds of people just in what you've talked about. So
yeah. And what if you could help people and help 1 million people? That would be the awesomest thing.
The best thing ever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm very happy with the growth. YouTube's a tricky place to play in. It's very you hear algorithms all the time and like who it's getting pushed to, and you have to put these secret tags and the description has to be a certain way and the title has to have certain words in it. It's exhausting to find that magic recipe of like what video is going to like take off. One of my videos that I uploaded a year ago just got 20,000 views in the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
It had 800 before that. Now it's at 20,000.
Randomly.
A year ago.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how? Why? Like, I want to repeat that.
Yeah.
But it's a very specific episode. It's with a female bodybuilder, Paige Sabidra. she sat here, so I'm obviously allowed to talk about it. But she admittedly took steroids and she talked about her experience with it. And she ended up having a stroke. Did that have any role in it? We don't know. She doesn't know. Doctors, of course, are going to say, yeah, of course it did. But she talked about the side effects of steroids. And the thumbnail of that episode is steroids can make females look like they have a penis. Like, that's the thumbnail of the video.
Okay.
Anyone's going to click on that.
They're going to click that shit. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But they didn't click it up until 2 weeks ago.
So weird.
So weird. But now it's like, okay, I don't want people to think this show's all about bodybuilding either, because my niche is everybody.
Right.
Anybody. So I'm getting all these comments to the video about steroid use and this and that. And I'm just like, okay, that's fine. But like, I have a lot of other cool episodes too that aren't about bodybuilding, but are still entertaining and educational. But anyways,
Yeah.
that's another struggle.
Yeah, YouTube is a funny place. In 2009, my dog was a joke. My dog was like an English bulldog. He humped everything. So he was humping my friend on the floor, and while she was wrapped in a plastic bag, because we were going to let him finish, right? So we put
Very
it
nice
on
of you.
we put it on YouTube, and it got 5 million views. There were people from other languages and other countries. It was so viral that YouTube eventually took it down, but we didn't know what to do with that. It was random. We didn't even know how to work a computer in 2009.
So you wrapped her in a condom.
We did. A big English bulldog condom. Yep.
It's very nice of you
Yeah.
to
We
let
were
him
bored.
finish.
It was 5 a.m. We had just gotten off work.
And you were sober, obviously,
sober.
which
I
is
didn't care.
frightening that you did that sober.
It actually is frightening.
It is. And on that note,
Right. That's it.
like the video, subscribe to the channel, watch one of these episodes, and I will see you on the next episode of Barbells and Bourbon. Peace. That's the best finisher, no pun intended, ever.
It was so bad. We were like,